There's something quietly powerful about a man who doesn't feel the need to post his life online. You know the type, while everyone else is busy showing off their new car, their vacation, their relationship, he's just living. No filters, no validation, just peace. And that peace, it hits differently. Because in a world where everyone's screaming, "Look at me," a man who stays silent becomes magnetic without even trying. You see, when you don't show everything, you become a mystery. People start to wonder, what's he up to? Who's he with? Why doesn't he post? And that curiosity, especially from women, is powerful. It's not about being secretive or antisocial, it's about value. You're showing that your life isn't a performance. You live for yourself, not for likes. And that subtle confidence, it speaks louder than any caption ever could. Here's the truth most people don't understand. When you stop needing to prove something to the world, you start becoming the kind of man the world wants to know about, because mystery creates emotional tension. Women, especially, are drawn to what they can't fully see or control. When a man is unpredictable, when he doesn't expose every thought or plan online, it activates a primal curiosity in her psychology. She starts watching quietly. She may never admit it, but she checks your profile more than once, looking for something new. When she finds nothing, she gets intrigued, because the silence itself becomes a statement. He's too focused on real life to chase attention. And deep down, that's what separates men who attract genuine respect from those who just get temporary attention. See, women are constantly surrounded by men who are trying too hard. Selfies, quotes, gym mirrors, all begging for validation. But the man who's invisible online yet impactful in real life, he stands out without effort. He becomes the storm you sense before you ever see. And that presence, that's what women feel. Think about it. When you're too visible, you lose your edge. You give people free access to your emotions, your routines, your world. There's no challenge left. But when you're private, when your moves aren't broadcasted, your life gains depth. You become unpredictable. You could be building a business, training, evolving, or simply enjoying peace. And that uncertainty, it makes others feel your value. Because the unknown always holds more power than the known. This is why the most disciplined, emotionally intelligent men stay off social media or use it with purpose. They understand that attention is currency, and they don't give it away easily. They're not hiding, they're protecting their energy. And women sense that protection. It signals strength, self-respect, and maturity. A woman might say she wants a guy who's active online, but in reality, the men she obsesses over are the ones she can't quite figure out. You see, every time you choose to live quietly, you're training your mind to detach from validation. That's a rare quality now, and rare always equals valuable. You become a man who doesn't need noise to feel worthy. You find contentment in your own company, and that kind of peace, it's intimidating to those who rely on attention to feel alive. But here's where it gets deeper. Staying off social media doesn't just make you mysterious to women. It also shifts how you see yourself. You stop comparing your journey to everyone else's highlight reel. You start living slower, deeper, more intentionally. And the moment you do that, you begin to separate from the crowd, not because you're better, but because you're freer. When you start valuing your privacy, something powerful happens. Your energy begins to speak louder than your posts ever could. People start feeling your presence even in your absence. That's the paradox. The less you show, the more they feel. Because mystery creates imagination, and imagination is far more powerful than information. Women especially, they notice this shift. When a man isn't constantly seeking attention online, it unsettles them in a fascinating way. It's not that they think you're arrogant, it's that they can't predict you. You're not playing the same game everyone else is. And that unpredictability, it stirs something in them. Psychologically, women are wired to seek emotional stimulation. When you're too predictable, too available, their curiosity fades. But when you're silent, composed, and detached, Their mind fills in the blanks. They wonder what you're thinking, what you're doing, and most importantly, who you're becoming. This is why a woman might find herself thinking about a man she barely knows, not because he said much, but because he said little. His silence forces her mind to create a story. That's the secret. Mystery isn't about manipulation, it's about leaving space for imagination. And in the digital age, where everyone overshares, the man who gives less becomes the one who's remembered more. There's a quiet strength in not needing to be seen all the time. The men who understand this know that visibility doesn't equal value. You can be everywhere online and still be invisible in real life. And you can be offline and still have a presence that lingers in people's minds. That's real influence, the kind that doesn't fade when the app closes. When you stay off social media, your priorities shift. You stop living for digital approval and start living for personal fulfillment. You spend your energy on things that build you, your craft, your mindset, your health. You become the man who invests in reality, not illusion, and that investment pays off in confidence, in peace, and in how women perceive you. Because here's what most men don't realize. Like, when you're not constantly broadcasting your life, women have to experience you in real life to understand you. They can't scroll through your photos to figure you out. They have to feel your energy in person, your tone, your silence, your focus. And that realness hits deeper than any post ever could. Women are emotional creatures. They read between the lines. When they see a man who isn't trying to impress strangers online, it tells them he has direction. It signals he's grounded, disciplined, and secure in who he is. That's the kind of man who triggers emotional safety and respect, not because he's showing off, but because he's not. And make no mistake, women test this. They might subtly ask why you don't post or tease you about being mysterious. But that's curiosity disguised as playfulness. In reality, they're intrigued. They want to know what kind of man doesn't need attention. They want to know what world you live in when you're not online. And if you stay grounded, if you stay focused, that curiosity turns into fascination. The truth is, every time you resist the urge to prove yourself online, you build an aura of discipline, an aura of self-worth. And that aura, it's something you can't fake, filter, or post. It's something you become. The more you grow into that quiet confidence, the more you begin to realize something deep. Attention isn't power. Control over attention is. Most men give it away without thinking, posting every win, every thought, every emotion. But you start holding yours back. You become selective about what you share, who you share it with, and when. That's when your energy shifts. You no longer need validation because you've learned how to validate yourself. And that shift doesn't just make you look strong, it makes you strong. You stop reacting to the noise around you. You stop chasing approval. You become grounded, calm, and detached from the chaos. That's where true masculine power lives, not in how loud you are, but in how centered you remain. And when women sense that, they can't help but feel something. It's subtle. It's not excitement. It's not lust. It's respect, a quiet kind of respect that grows the more they realize you're not driven by the same needs as everyone else. Now, here's the psychological layer most people miss. Women are naturally drawn to emotional contrast. The more grounded and self-contained you are, the more they feel emotional depth around you. You become the calm in a world of noise, and that calmness feels safe, but it's also thrilling because it's rare. You don't feed the algorithm. You feed your soul. You don't post about your moves. You make them. And every action you take in silence becomes louder than 1,000 online declarations. There's something irresistibly masculine about a man who doesn't announce his growth, but lets it show in his presence. Maybe he's been in the gym. Maybe he's been learning a new skill. Maybe he's been building something from scratch. But you only notice it when you meet him, not from his feed. That's when women start seeing you differently. They realize they can't measure your worth by scrolling, so they start paying attention in real life. And in today's world, that's power. You see, privacy isn't about hiding. It's about preserving. It's about protecting what's still sacred. Your peace, your plans, your purpose. When you keep parts of your life unseen, you're not missing out. You're actually holding on to something everyone else is giving away. Mystery, control, and inner balance. The more you guard that, the more attractive you become, because your value isn't accessible to everyone. And that's exactly why women respect men who live quietly. It's not just about attraction, it's about trust. A woman knows that a man who isn't desperate for attention online probably isn't desperate for it in real life either. He's less likely to need constant reassurance, less likely to seek validation from other women, and more likely to stay focused on what truly matters. He doesn't need to prove his worth because his actions already do. But let's be real. This kind of man intimidates people, especially those who live for attention. Your silence will make them uncomfortable because it forces them to face their own noise. They'll try to provoke you, question you, even guilt you for being private. But deep down, that reaction only confirms what you already know. Your quietness holds power, because when you can't be easily read, you can't be easily controlled. And that's where the truth really hits. Staying off social media isn't about disconnecting from the world, it's about reconnecting with yourself. It's about finding value in your own presence, not your online reflection. And the moment you understand that, your entire approach to attraction changes. You stop chasing and you start drawing in. Eventually, the peace that comes from living quietly becomes addictive. You stop craving the noise, the likes, the comments. Instead, you start craving deeper moments, silence, growth, connection. You realize that when your life isn't constantly being watched, you can actually live it. And that's when real transformation begins. See, when you're not broadcasting your every move, you free yourself from external judgment. You start doing things because they matter to you, not because they'll impress someone else. You take that trip, not for the photos, but for the peace it gives your soul. You hit the gym, not to post progress, but because the discipline sharpens your mind. You build your life in private, and when people finally notice the results, it feels effortless. That's the power of silence. It makes your success speak louder. Women notice this too. They can sense when a man is building something quietly, when he's not showing off but growing, that quiet ambition. It's intoxicating. It signals maturity. It says, I'm focused on my purpose, not your attention. And for a woman, that's both rare and magnetic. She starts to see you as the kind of man who doesn't need validation because he already has direction. And that's the kind of energy she wants to be around. But here's the twist. When you start living this way, not everyone will understand you. Some people will call you distant, others will assume you're hiding something, but that's fine because your life doesn't need to be understood by everyone. The fewer people who know your next move, the smoother your journey becomes. You'll find yourself surrounded by calmness, and that calm will become your superpower. Because in silence, you build. In silence, you heal. In silence, you rise. There's something poetic about a man who's too busy becoming better to announce it. He doesn't compete with others. He competes with his past self. He doesn't need a digital audience to clap for him. His progress is personal, and that energy, it radiates without a single post. Because when you walk into a room with quiet confidence, people feel it before you speak. That's the kind of presence no algorithm can replicate. Psychologically, what you're doing when you detach from social media is reclaiming your self-worth. You're training your brain to no longer depend on dopamine hits from notifications. You're rewiring yourself to find satisfaction in real progress, not digital applause. And that change doesn't just make you calmer, it makes you powerful, because a man who doesn't need attention can't be controlled by it. And in the realm of attraction, that's everything. Women can sense when a man is emotionally independent, when his peace isn't for sale, when he doesn't need her attention to feel alive. That's when she gives it freely, because women are drawn to stability, to a man who can lead with quiet confidence, a man whose value doesn't fluctuate with his followers. You start to realize that mystery isn't just about not posting. It's about mastery. Mastery of your emotions, mastery of your focus, mastery of your energy. You move differently, think differently, live differently. And the irony is, by staying off social media, you start to attract exactly what others chase on it: respect, curiosity, and genuine admiration. And maybe that's the hidden truth behind it all. And the men who keep their lives off social media aren't avoiding the world, they're mastering it. Because the moment you stop needing to be seen, you finally start to become someone worth seeing. You've walked this path so far, starting to understand what it means when you don't need to be seen online, when you choose to build your life quietly from the inside out. And now you're ready for the truth that sits quietly between the lines. What really matters isn't hiding your life. It's showing up authentically when it counts. Imagine this. You're at a small gathering, the kind of night that won't make headlines or get tagged. A woman notices you. Not because you announced your arrival, but because your presence felt calm. You weren't scrolling your phone. You weren't chasing the next moment to post. You were here. And she senses that. In that moment, your life off screen becomes more vivid than any highlight reel because you're real. You're not performing for an audience, you're just living. And that is deeply attractive. Here's the psychology behind it. When you withhold the constant flood of content about yourself, you create space. In that space, a woman's imagination steps in. She wonders, what's his world like when the camera's off? Who is he beyond what I can see? Our brains are wired to fill in blanks, to chase mysteries. When a man doesn't overshare, it invites her in, not by looking at a feed, but by experiencing something genuine. That's where emotional connection begins. And emotional connection is what turns attraction into curiosity and curiosity into respect, because respect doesn't grow when someone tells you everything about themselves immediately. It grows when you earn bits of insight, when she sees you being consistent with your actions instead of your posts, when you silently hold your values, your calm, your purpose strong. She starts to feel safe, not because you promised her the moon, but because you don't need to. You simply are. Yet, there's a subtle caveat. Mystery isn't a mask. It isn't about being aloof to manipulate attention. It's about living from your center. If you withdraw because you're insecure, you'll create distance that repels. Studies show that when someone's feelings are too vague or unpredictable in a harmful way, it leads to mistrust. But when your privacy is powered by self-respect and intention, that's magnetic. Don't confuse mystery with disinterest. Be present, be engaged, but let your life speak in unspoken ways. Here's the emotional takeaway. Your worth isn't measured in screenshots or check-ins. It's measured in moments you live when no one watches. It's in the promise you keep to yourself to grow, to work, to feel, and to heal. Your value bends around what you hold sacred, your time, your focus, your integrity. And when a woman sees that, she doesn't want you to post it. She wants to live it with you. So keep building that world off social media. Keep choosing depth over display, presence over projection. Let your life be quieter, not weaker. Let your story be richer, not louder. Because when you're the man who doesn't need to prove his attraction, you become the one who commands it anyway. And one day, when you least expect it, you'll walk into a conversation and she'll lean in. She won't ask what you posted today, she'll ask how you lived today, and the answer you give will speak volumes. This isn't just about staying off social media. It's about stepping into the version of yourself that no algorithm could capture. The version that's real, the version that matters. And if you've listened this far, your next step is clear. Live for you. Let the rest follow. Thanks for being here. I'll see you in the next one. If you found this helpful, keep it with you. Keep it private if you need to. The quiet work wins the loudest results.